Sandwiched between a jeep and bulldozer, the Chandelisphere odd couple update. Struck with tetanus, Godarshan first Prema welcomes Mahanihai Swami by extending her neck for him to scratch. Mahanihai Swami consoles Gulabhai by offering her bananas. Pilgrimage begins with Godarshan. His Holiness Mahanihai Swami, author, editor, publisher, and longtime resident of Braja Mandal, organized a yatra for devotees from Mumbai and Delhi to visit the principal deities of Vrindavan. The pilgrims began their tour by visiting Care for Cows and taking the blessings of Sri Krishna's most beloved animals. Maharaja has been a steady supporter of Care for Cows for several years and has inspired his followers to actively. Gauranga accepts caresses from Radha and her father Ravinder Pathla. Love at first sight. Radhika Priya woos Rakesh Rahira. Care for Cows trustee Madri blesses pilgrim by accepting bananas. Mahanihai Swami with trustees Amit Dulani, left, Rakesh Rahira, right, and Vraja Mohan Dasa Damodara Dasa consoles Gokarna, who's recovering from tetanus poisoning. Participate by becoming trustees and helping expand our activities. Our residents were very happy to accept bananas from the pilgrims and gave their full blessings so they would have successful darshans of Maiden Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath. The yatris proceeded to Jaipur to visit the original deities and then to Nathdwara to visit the famous Gopal deity unearthed by Madhavendra Puri. Mahanihai Swami has published Gaudiya Vaisnava Samadhis, appreciating Sri Vrindavan Dhamma, Caitanya Mangala, Madhava Mahotsava, art of chanting Hare Krishna, Ananda Vrindavan Kampu, Krishnanika Kaumudi, Sarartha Darsani, Gauranga Gita, Bhavanasara Sangraha, and others. The books published by Mahanihai Swami are greatly appreciated by the international Vaisnava community. Despite dense darkness, pouring monsoon rain and pockets of water on the road, a driver thumb on the horn, foot to the floor, headlights on dim sped his jeep towards Chatakara for reasons unknown. Upon penetrating a large puddle, a wave of water completely covered the windshield, blinding him further. The rain pounded hard on two homeless calves who scurried about in search of high ground in the dark muddy fields bordering the road. Happening upon the road, they felt relief to have found solid ground beneath their feet. However, their relief was short-lived. Before the windshield shed the water to the degree the driver could see the road, the jeep struck something and the driver pulled over to see what had happened. He sadly discovered he had hit the two calves. The one who took the full brunt of the impact was sent into a bulldozer parked on the side of the road, the other into the muddy field from whence she had come. In the pouring rain, the driver tried to find some shelter for the one sandwiched between, impaled on the large teeth on the bucket of the bulldozer, the other, he could not find. The one lay practically lifeless enduring the heavy rain until the morning, when the driver contacted Dr. Chandrasekhar, who attended to the 8x6-inch gash on her back and the many other mud-filled wounds all over her body. She could not get up and could barely sit. The frantic driver, very concerned over his negligence, vowed not to eat until he had found shelter for the calf. He went to 4 nearby goshalas but none would take her in. Dr. Chandrasekhar suggested Care for Cows and the distressed driver arranged for her to be carried here by ox cart. Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Karan, via email, Syama Gauri Dasi, Pavan, and Syama Hari took up the challenge to save her. They nicknamed the calf Gulabi as she resembles Gulab, a young bull we took in last year with a broken leg. The driver of the jeep, being relieved that Gulabi was in capable hands, severe swelling / multiple lacerations, gash on leg above, broken tail below, bulldozer teeth marks on back, a jeep and bulldozer, departed for his village to feed the brahmanas rather than offer to offset her medical expenses. But Lord Gopal, who resides within the heart of everyone, being dedicated to protecting the cows, inspired Mr. Pradipta Chatterjee and Pransvari Dasi, from different parts of the world, to contribute towards Gulabi's medical expenses and sponsor her maintenance. Upon arrival, Gulabi was completely swollen and was not comfortable in any position. After injections to relieve pain, reduce swelling and prevent infection, she experienced some relief. Besides the huge gashes on her back, other complications were deep gashes on her posterior, a broken tail, and several wounds on all 4 legs, some of which reached the bone. Our greatest concern was the blood oozing from her nose, indicating a lung injury. That was attended to first. After 12 days of intensive care, Gulabi was showing steady improvement. Please drive carefully when you come to Vraja. Her wounds were cleaned daily and she was hoisted up for a few hours to keep her legs from going numb. She had a great appetite, so we had all hope that she would recover. After 21 days of steady improvement, Gulabi suddenly became weak and began wheezing. Her bodily temperature dropped and the flesh around her wounds turned dark. Dr. Chandrasekhar recommended a saline drip and penicillin. We administered the drip and she became very peaceful. We covered her with a blanket hoping to raise her temperature. While adjusting her pillows, we heard a rattling in her throat as she exhaled. Srimad Bhagavatam denotes this as a symptom that death is near. A few minutes after this, she peacefully departed. All of the devotees who had served her so diligently were sad that they could serve her no longer, but relieved that her suffering had ended. We immediately selected a place for her grave and offered her Ganges water, incense, Mahaprasada flower garlands and a Hari Nama chatter. Gulabi wore a most peaceful gaze as she was covered with the cool sands of Raman Reedy. I wandered into what used to be a pasturing ground to discover it had become a farmer's field. I started to graze as before but was soon hacked on the back with an axe. Real hard. The farmers I used to plow for now take me for an unwanted criminal. We need shelter. Donate to the Care for Cows Land Fund. Live off TTH East reads the Shandalas, an expanded excerpt from The Miracle of Goseva. Gita Press. Fear. As the sun rose over the crematorium, smoke from a smoldering funeral pyre intertwined with the heavy fog hanging 8 feet above the wet sand along the river bank. The stale air was filled with the shrieks of 2 dogs fiercely fighting over the charred remains of a corpse. The stronger seized the weaker by the throat and shook him until he lay lifeless, then victoriously carried off the spoils. A tent fashioned with torn black plastic and bamboo shook as a gaunt, crooked figure violently coughed while exiting into the dim light. The decrepit hunched woman expelled mucus and blood from her throat, then wiped her blackened bony wrist across her thin pale lips. She shuffled towards the smoldering fire to shed the cold. After squatting, foul breath hissed through her broken teeth and the glowing coals revealed matted hair framing dark sunken eyes and a prominent curved beak of a nose with cavernous nostrils oozing mucus. A frail flame arose from the coals and she carefully goaded bits of wood towards it with a discarded bone. As the fire grew stronger, she scavenged and found a skull which she fashioned into a pot by chipping away the unwanted parts with a broken brick. A solitary crow landed on the remains of the dead dog to peck out his eyes. After recovering from another violent cough, the woman hurled the brick and struck the crow as he tore at the dog's flesh. Dazed, the crow fluttered in the sand, but before he could regain his senses, she caught him with her bony fingers and strangled the life out of him. Celebrating her good fortune, she tore the feathers from the breast of the crow, plucked out his heart, and carefully placed it in the pot while cackling in delight. Next she clawed at the dog and after ripping off a large patch of skin, dug out a handful of flesh which she also dropped in the pot. She then wrenched out the remaining bodily fluids of the crow into the mixture and carefully placed the pot on the fire. With the bone she alternately stirred the contents in the vessel and goaded bits of wood and charcoal into the flames, as mucus dripped from her nose into the pot. While cooking the murky soup, the fire kneaded the stiffness out of her torso and intestines, inspiring the flow of loose motion. Onyx oiled her tattered skirt. The stench of the boiling mixture made her mouth water and stomach growl. Her grotesque form caught the attention of a man who wandered in the distance mourning his deceased father. Holding his breath, he quietly crept towards her, his heart pounding in his ears. Sensing his presence, the Chandala woman huddled closer to the fire protecting her breakfast, then shot a cold stare at the man making him freeze. "What are you doing?" the man whispered in wonder and fear. "I'm cooking," she answered coldly. As he crept closer, she snatched the patch of dog skin and quickly covered the pot. With wide eyes the man asked, "What's in the pot? Why are you covering it? Stay back." "I don't know you," she spat. Jutting her bony chin downstream she said, "All this land bordering the crematorium used to be the sacred pasturing grounds of the cows. But over the years it has all been usurped by greedy farmers and shrewd real estate brokers. I fear if you are one of them, your wicked glance will pollute my breakfast, rendering it unfit for my consumption. Asterisk usurping the pasturing grounds of the cows is a sin that destroys all pious credits. Donating land and seeding it for grazing is meritorious. Those who provide pasturing grounds for the cows will undoubtedly earn the mercy of Sri Gopala. Wisdom from the past. Alas, what wickedness to swallow flesh into our own flesh, to fatten our greedy bodies by cramming in other bodies, to have one living creature fed by the death of another. In the midst of such wealth as earth, the best of mothers, provides, nothing forsooth satisfies you but to behave like the Cyclopes, inflicting sorry wounds with cruel teeth. You cannot appease the hungry cravings of your wicked, gluttonous stomachs except by destroying some other life. Pythagoras Vijara is a year-old bull who was put on the street where he suffered an ankle injury. He was admitted this month and needs a sponsor. Did you know? Van Krishna's wound has fully healed and he is scheduled to be released from his holding pen and return to live with the calves in a few days. We have arranged a private garden for him where he can graze without disturbance. Many thanks to those of you who assisted in his recuperation. Van Krishna update. Odd couple update. Gauranga's leg injury has almost completely healed in 1 month. The odd couple have been with us for over a month and many good things have happened to them. They have been named Gauranga and Gaurangi and are presently being sponsored by Nalini Gagar and Anand and Charanya Chandar Subramanian. They are left free to wander about the Gosadan as they like and have discovered where the grains are stored and are the first to welcome any guests. Gauranga shows signs of a previous injury to his back leg as it is not being carried properly in his hip joint. Because it was never attended to, it has healed improperly and causes him to stand awkwardly at times. Nevertheless, he can move around well enough, especially when guests bring bananas and other snacks. His front leg injury has healed and he no longer requires bandaging. He is a good patent and at present requires no further treatment. Gaurangi's condition is more complicated as her fracture has left bone fragments which are causing pus to fester in the wound. She has been taken to the Mathura Animal Hospital twice where she has been examined by Dr. Pandey who removed one bone fragment. Another was removed by our medical attendants and we are hopeful that no more leg being x-rayed. Dr. Pandey removed bone fragments remain so the healing and bone mending can begin to take place. Gaurangi's wound is flushed and cleaned every other day and the PCV cast padding changed when required. As soon as the wound heals, a more permanent cast will be fit so the bone can set. Both Gauranga and Gaurangi are cooperative patients and have become some of our most popular residents. Both are well known for their voracious appetites. Examination by Dr. Pandey flushing the wound fitting the PVC cast. Buffalo Wedding Daily News June 22, 2004 Bangkok, 2 buffaloes have tied the knot in northern Thailand, complete with organ music. Farmers in Chiang Mai Province, 750 kilometers north of Bangkok, organized the unusual nuptials. The villagers enthusiastically took part in the event, walking in procession to the joyful sounds of traditional musical instruments. The farmers signed the marriage registration papers at the farmyard wedding between Pupan, the male buffalo, and his bride, May Moon. The wedding ceremony was followed by a traditional blessing for a prolonged life for the buffaloes in which a holy thread was tied between the horns of the newlyweds. The radiant bride and groom were decorated with flowers, and offerings of popped rice, scented holy water and green grass were made to them for good luck and prosperity. The farmers feel a deep gratitude to buffaloes for helping them work their rice fields. If buffaloes can marry, why can't we? Gauranga? Struck with tetanus, a solitary bull calf staggered along the parikrama path and stumbled to lay flat on the side of the road. It was noon on one of those muggy days during the monsoon season that couldn't decide whether to rain or shine. Padmalokan Dasa was chanting on the parikrama path when he noticed him and decided to alert care for cows. Before we arrived, some local devotees had already called the vet and were waiting for his arrival. Dr. Chandrasekhar asked us to carefully put him upright and noticed he was too weak to stand alone. He examined his limbs and determined they were intact. There were no signs of impact. He administered injections to reduce shock, Help to his feet. Dr. Chandrasekhar gives injection stiff legs and neck during a seizure, inflammation and infection, and asked us to take him to our clinic and keep him cool until the afternoon when he would return to examine him. Upon arrival the bull showed little interest in eating or drinking and slowly started to get weaker. About 4 o'clock he laid flat, arching his neck upward, grinding his teeth and violently kicking his legs in running motions. After the seizure his heart would pound more rapidly than a mridanga at the peak of curtain. Then he would lay exhausted for 10 minutes and then his jaw would lock and his limbs would become rigid before another seizure would begin. This went on for 2 hours, during which time an anti-spasm medicine was administered but did not offer much relief. We tried our best to prevent him from injuring himself during the violent seizures. At first Dr. Chandrasekhar suspected a liver malfunction as the bull seemed to be poisoned. He administered a sedative which effectively calmed him and the seizures practically stopped. Syamagouri Dasi attended the bull until 1 a.m. calming and Padmalakhan Dasa elated to see the bull's progress. Gokarna getting his bearings after standing up by himself, weakened by seizures but trying to eat a helping hand. Sushil and Pavan offer encouragement, encouraging him. He lay flat the whole next day and night without drinking or evacuating. Antibiotics were administered under the directions of the vet, but most of us began to accept that his departure was inevitable. The symptoms indicated tetanus poisoning, so the vet prescribed a course of antibiotics, nerve and muscle relaxants and anti-inflammatories. During his 3rd day with us, Padmalakhan Dasa named the bull Gokarna and noticed that he wanted to drink and sit up. This gave everyone hope. Everyone began to offer bananas, chapatis, mangoes, and other snacks to encourage him. On the 4th day Gokarna stood up by himself and started eating and ruminating properly. He is still weak but getting stronger daily. Surabhai Parasuram Care for Cows captured Surabhai, who had been wandering around Raman Reddy for several weeks. Her ribs were bulging through her skin and she showed several cuts and scrapes, and an inflamed udder. While Dr. Karen was attending to several of our residents, a healthy and stout 4-year-old bull stopped at the gate and we noticed he had dried blood on his back and sides. We brought him into outpatients. She was not anxious to be helped, but after being well fed she cast off her skepticism and cooperated. Dr. Karen discovered a deep laceration on her vulva and attended to that first. She then tested her for mastitis and attended to her several wounds. Daily WHE was given fresh grass, wheat stock wet with mustard cake, wheat bran, and chickpea husks. She was also fed cracked barley and attended to until her wounds were healed. She sneaked out when the gate was open and is now seen to be grazing on the fresh grasses along the roadsides brought about by monsoon rain. Discover an ugly gash on his back across his spine. Since he was unruly he had to be restrained in order to be treated. Dr. Karen administered an anesthetic to deaden the flesh around the gash and then proceeded to clean the wound, which was almost an inch deep. Our medical attendants continued cleaning and dressing the wound for over a week until it completely sealed. During that time every farmer who stopped by was asked how such a gash could have occurred. They unanimously agreed that the bull had wandered into a farmer's field and been struck with an axe. Hi. My name is Gopi. When I was admitted to Care for Cows I was severely malnourished, covered with mange and completely depressed. They put me on a 4-month beautifying program and just see the transformation. Thanks to all of you for helping. Gopi is sponsored by Raj Kalayar Manor, USA. Contributors to Gopi's Lifelong Maintenance Fund are Christopher Lutz, Shyam and Ishan Puppet, USA. Care for Cows INVRINDAVANA. Thank you from the cows. May cows stay in front of me, may cows stay behind me, may cows stay on both sides of me. May I always reside in the midst of cows. Hari Bhaktavila 16.252 Gauranga Mesmorazi. The Comer family. The cows send their wholehearted thanks to all of you who assisted during July to feed, sponsor, contribute to the Lifelong Maintenance Fund, donate medical supplies and offer good advice. Radha Jivan Dasa, USA. Shiv Sharma, Canada. Mark Kenzer. Lisa Kubitz, USA. LM Wild, Mariana Polanski, USA. Sujal Puppet, USA. Kishore Dasi, USA. Katyayani Didi, USA. Renato and Rachel Basarik, UK. Prasanna Sita Dasa, USA. Dani Lafleur, Denmark Esther E. Glecko, USA Pradipta Chatterjee. USA Ryan Coe and J.B. Harry, USA Dina Sarana and family, USA Anonymous, Singapore Victor Epand, Hawaii Rita Janet Diaz, USA Thomas Wasney, USA Raj Kalayar Manor, USA Vishal, Mun, Lavanya and Radha Komer, Delhi Mahani Hai Swami, Radha Kund Ananda Dasa, Guatemala Ambika Dasi, USA Ajay Kumar, Kolkata Pransvari Dasi, Australia Gunjamala was born to Mangala just over a year ago and is known to be gentle, peaceful and mischievous. Most of the cows who arrive from the street are pregnant and consequently we have over 35 residents who have been born here. Since they have never been mistreated, they are especially friendly and affectionate. Contributors to the Lifelong Maintenance Fund of Gujamala are Radhakaran Dasa, Krishnamai Dasi, Janaki Dasa, Poland. Happiness is being born at Care for Cows.